Welcome to the Functional Medicine Radio Show with your host, Dr. Carri Drzyzga, known internationally as the Functional Medicine Doc. Dr. Carri is committed to helping patients find the root cause of their health problems and fixing the cause with natural treatments so they can feel normal again. Dr. Carri is the founder of Functional Medicine Ontario and is the author of the hit book, Reclaim Your Energy and Feel Normal Again. Please welcome your host, Dr. Carri Drzyzga.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Functional Medicine Radio Show, the only internet radio show dedicated to giving you real solutions to improve your health. Not only are they real solutions, but they're natural solutions as well, because as you know, the one and only true wealth you have is your health. I'm your host, Dr. Carri Drzyzga, the Functional Medicine Doc, and I'm committed to helping you find the root cause of your health problem, fix the cause with natural treatments, so you can feel normal again and live your life to the fullest. Just a quick bit of housekeeping before I introduce today's special guest. I'm happy to announce my first book is now in print. The title is Reclaim Your Energy and Feel Normal Again, Fixing the Root Cause of Your Fatigue with Natural Treatments. I've discovered 14 root causes of fatigue. I like to call them the fatigue factors, and in this book I explain 8 of the 14. I've had some amazing feedback on how easy it is to read and understand. It's not full of technical doctory language like most books written by doctors are. And of course, the book also includes my own personal fatigue story along with 4 other cases from real fatigue patients from my private practice. It's available in paperback and Kindle form, so if you'd like a copy, you can find it on Amazon or on my website, www.drcarri.com. That's it for our housekeeping, so let's get started. I'm so very excited about this week's show because my special guest is someone that I greatly admire. His name is Dr. Alejandro Junger. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Dr. Junger was born in Uruguay. He graduated from medical school there in 1990 and moved to New York City for his post-grad training. He completed 3 years of training in internal medicine at NYU Downtown Hospital and 3 more years of fellowship in cardiovascular diseases at Lenox Hill Hospital. The drastic change in lifestyle and diet resulting from his move to New York City soon showed up as irritable bowel syndrome and depression. Becoming a patient of the system he was practicing was such a shock that it started his journey in search of an alternative solution to his health problems. His findings are the subject of his first book, Clean, the revolutionary program to restore the body's natural ability to heal itself, where Dr. Junger describes how he became aware of the toxicity of our planet. He also explains how detoxification and cleansing have been around for thousands of years, but the knowledge has been lost, and right now it's more important than ever to reclaim this information. Most importantly, Clean is a manual for readers to learn how to turn on and work with their own detoxification systems to restore and maintain optimal health. Dr. Junger, thank you so much for being my special guest today on this episode of the Functional Medicine Radio Show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Dr. Junger, can you tell us a little bit more about your story? We talked just really briefly about you going and moving across the continent to New York City and how that change had a big impact on your health. Do you mind telling us a little bit more on that?
Sure. I was born in Uruguay in South America, and life there was very healthy by default. My dad was very big on vegetables and fruits, and overall there were no supermarkets, so there were no packaged foods. We used to eat real food, not edible products. And then I went to medical school, and I wasn't really taught in medical school how a healthy diet translates into a plate at the dinner table. It was just a bunch of information about proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and vitamins, and all of that. So I was very, very healthy just because. But when I moved to New York, my lifestyle changed drastically. Not only I was working those crazy hours that we all know medical trainees have to endure, but also I was eating from hospital cafeterias and from supermarkets and all these packaged foods and I was fascinated with them because I hadn't really been exposed to that in Uruguay. But soon enough, it started taking a toll on my health. I started gaining a lot of weight. I started having very difficult digestion. I started having first seasonal allergies, which turned into a year-round torture of sneezing and itching. And lastly, but more importantly, I started waking up with this sense of doom, which by the time I got really worried about all of these symptoms and visited 3 colleagues, a gastroenterologist, an allergist, and a psychiatrist, I was diagnosed with 3 diseases, severe allergies, depression, and irritable bowel syndrome. And I was given 7 prescription medications. And as you said in your introduction, becoming a patient in the system that I was practicing in was shocking, and it didn't make sense to me. So I looked for a different solution, and that took me around the world and back to the United States, where I found a bunch of things that kind of improved my health slightly. And it wasn't until I found the concepts and practices of cleansing and detoxification that I really was able to fully restore my health and some. I not only got rid of all my symptoms, but also I looked and I felt 10 years younger. That is what prompted me to really get into the subject and find the Institute for Functional Medicine that explained everything that I was witnessing from a medical point of view. And, the rest is history.
So you are a best-selling author. You have multiple books out there. I wanted to talk today a little bit about your book called Clean Gut, because there has been so much information lately, especially about the importance of digestion and about having a good, healthy gut and the friendly bacteria that should be living in our intestines. So first off, can you define what is the gut? Because I think a lot of listeners are not really sure what that actually means.
Yeah, it is not a medically approved term. When you study medicine and you study anatomy or physiology, you everything is broken up by different organs. So you study the intestines, you study the liver, you study the pancreas. Everything is kind of isolated, and there's a specialist for each one of these organs. When I talk about the gut, I put together different organs and systems that basically have some of the most important functions in the body. And what I include under that name is the intestinal tube, the intestinal wall, which is the limit between the inside and the outside of the body, the nervous system around the intestinal wall, within the intestinal tube wall and around the intestines, the immune system within and around the intestines as well. So that is what, for me, includes the gut, and also the addition to that list of the intestinal flora, the good organisms, the good bacteria that should be living in our intestines. That is what I call the gut. And basically, one way of thinking about it, if you're not a medical person, is that the gut is very similar to the roots of a plant. The roots is where a plant sucks its nutrients from the soil and sends them to the rest of the plant. And when a plant is sick, even if a tree has problems with its leaves and its fruits and its flowers, the problems usually lie within the roots and the soil. And in the same way, the intestines is where we suck our nutrients from our soil, which is the food, and we send it to the rest of the organs, including the skin and the hair. So problems in different parts of the body. When you look at where these problems originate from, they originate from the root, which is the gut. When I was studying in India, and I was exposed to different modalities of healing and medicine, I always heard, that health and disease start in the intestines. Even Socrates said that in ancient Greece. And I never really understood until I became aware of the importance of the gut. And that's what the subject of my book is about, how the chronic diseases of the modern world really have their origin mostly in the gut.
So I love that you're talking about roots and you're using the analogy of a plant. So and I know that in functional medicine, we're always striving to find the root underlying cause. I like to say find the cause, fix the cause so you can feel normal again. And in your book, Clean Gut, you have a full chapter on the root cause of disease. So can you delve a little bit more into that?
Yeah, well, health and disease start in the intestines, right? And one of the things that we're doing all the time in our modern civilization is eating and drinking. And we're putting a lot of things in our intestines that are not really what nature designed for us to put in our intestines. So when you look at animals in the wild that are living according to the natural design, they don't get sick. They run around, they reproduce, they either die of old age or an accident or are eaten by another animal. There are no rhinoceros with depression or monkeys with autoimmune diseases or giraffes with cancer. This only occurs to us humans, and it's because we are living in unnatural conditions. Now, these unnatural conditions are mostly what we eat and drink, and how much we eat and drink, and how often we eat and drink, and the types of things that we eat and drink loaded with chemicals that we add to them so that they can last longer in the shelves and look better and smell better and get you coming to buy them all over and over again. And they're not foods anymore. They're edible products, edible processed stuff. And when you eat that, you start by killing the bacteria in your gut, damaging the wall of the intestines, which should be intact, leading to a condition called hyperpermeability or leaky gut, exciting and pissing off the immune system that lives within and around the gut, the intestines, and also causing the nervous system. We have more neurons around the gut than in our skull. So we have what many scientists call our second brain, and that is put into all kinds of situations and trigger all kinds of survival and adaptation mechanisms that end up exhausting the resources and the energy that they should be using for regular normal functioning in order for us to adapt and survive. So in addition, the lack or the inability to absorb the nutrients that we should be absorbing, that leads to a mess. And the mess is the state of humanity today, where chronic diseases are rampant all over the world, and people are suffering and dying from them.
So one of the things that you mentioned was our food supply, that we're not eating real food anymore. A lot of what we eat is processed food stuff. What are some of the most common toxins we're exposed to from our foods?
Well, listen, if you go to a supermarket, a modern supermarket today, and you take a bird's eye view of what people are buying, of what supermarkets are selling, 90% of the things that are being sold in a supermarket come in some kind of container, a box, a jar, a tube, a can. And in order to be in these containers, they have to have chemicals to prevent them from rotting. Now, what is rotting? Rotting is the growth of organisms, bacteria, funguses, all kinds of organisms. So in order to prevent them from rotting, they put substances, they put chemicals that kill these organisms. What are these substances? We call them preservatives and conservatives, but basically they are antibiotics, anti-life. They prevent life from growing on the food. So the longer the shelf life, the unhealthier what you're eating is, because once you put these chemicals in your intestines, they not only kill the organisms that we should be growing in the food and rotting them, they kill every other organism in your gut as well. So not only that, we add all kinds of other chemicals, coloring agents, smelling agents, texturizing agents. We add hormones, antibiotics, all fertilizers, pesticides, all kinds of chemicals that are not really what nature designed for us to eat, and they cause havoc in the body.
As you were describing all of that, I was thinking about a documentary I saw recently by Morgan Spurlock, and he was talking about following his garbage and where does it really go. And he had on an expert to help him try and create a zero waste, zero impact, she took him shopping to the grocery store, and it really opened my eyes as to how can we even just buy food that doesn't even come in any packaging.
Yeah, that's crazy what we're doing. It's we're not only ruining the planet, we're ruining our bodies.
So all of that garbage, the toxins get into our body. And so that's a big part of your clean gut program. So can you describe a little bit what your program is all about?
The program is based on the 4 or the 5 R's of functional medicine, if you will. One is to remove everything that shouldn't be in your diet. Remove the toxins, remove the chemicals, remove the foods that, even if they don't have any toxins, are triggering things in your body, so your toxic triggers, and that is gluten, dairy, sugar, alcohol, coffee, and other things that, even though for some people are healthy, for people with gut problems are not that healthy, like grains and sugary fruits. Then the second R is the R that talks about restoring the good conditions, restoring the good nutrients that we need. The third R is about re-inoculating the good bacteria, the good organisms in your gut. The fourth R is about repair, and specifically this talks about the repair of the wall of the intestines, that when hyperpermeable, when leaky, causes the immune system to get defensive, and that includes the addition of certain nutrients like L-glutamine and things that promote the cell of those the growth of those cells that cover the wall of the intestine. And the fifth R, which is as important as the other ones, but people don't usually associate it with gut repair and with other health issues, is relaxation. We live in a world where everybody is stressed out, and it's if you think about it, it's normal, because we are animals designed by nature, and we are designed to live in a natural environment, and we are designed to have this stress response when our life is threatened, when there's a predator coming, But these days, because of the way we live, which is so unnatural, our stress mechanism, our stress response is constantly turned on. So it serves no purpose anymore other than really destroying the functions of your body. So relaxation is really important as well.
So for our listeners, again, it was remove the bad stuff, restore the good stuff, re-inoculate with the good friendly bacteria, repair the damage, and then relaxation, or what I like to call vitamin R.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Can you describe some of the success stories that you've seen from your clean gut program? Because I'm sure you have some amazing stories.
Yeah, I see so many different problems greatly improved or completely resolved when one pays attention to the repair of the gut, right? I'll tell you one that I describe in the book, which is one of the most touching to me because it involves people that I know and love. I have a friend in Uruguay who called me and told me he was getting married and that he was very worried because his fiancée was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called Behçet syndrome, which is a disease in which your immune system attacks your arteries, and your arteries are everywhere. So your symptoms are basically in every organ and system in the body. So she had so many problems, and including bone problems, and she couldn't form tears or saliva, so she had dry eyes and dry mouth, which led to bad breath and teeth infections, and she couldn't sleep. She had problems menstruating. I mean, the symptoms went on and on and on, and she's had them since she was a little girl. But they were just getting worse and worse and worse. And several visits to several different specialists ended up with 3 of the specialists agreeing that she had this autoimmune condition, and she was prescribed basically chemotherapy, methotrexate and prednisone. And she was told that one of the risks of taking these medications was that she wasn't going to be able to have kids. And this is probably one of the most devastating pieces of news for a soon bride-to-be. So they called me in desperation before starting these medications. And I told them, you know what, take a plane. They're from Uruguay. They came to Los Angeles. They stayed for 3 weeks, in which I put them on an intense gut repair program. And within 10 days, their symptoms were 90% improved. And within 3 weeks, they were almost completely resolved. And this is 3 or 4 years later, and she's doing amazing. She's on no medications. She only gets symptoms when she goes off her diet, and this was an incredible successful story for me.
Amazing. So in my practice, a lot of patients will ask about doing a cleanse, doing a detox, who should do it, how often should they do it, how long should they do it for, and then for our listeners out there, are there any instances where a person should not do a detox cleanse?
Well, let's start with that.
Yeah.
There's contraindications to doing a detoxification program or a gut repair program, because the changes are so drastic for most people that engage in this kind of program. They may run into trouble with certain situations. For example, if somebody is taking a medication that needs a very controlled and constant blood level, because the changes in nutrition are so drastic for so many people when you engage in this kind of program, that the levels of those drugs that you need constant may change, and may change unpredictably. For example, if you're taking a medication for thinning your blood because you are prone to blood clots, then you don't know you may absorb too much of it, and the blood may be too thinned, or you may absorb too little of it and be forming clots. That's the case of Coumadin, for example. People that are taking anti-epileptics, people that are taking anti-arrhythmics, things like that. So if you're taking medications that need a constant blood level, then it's a contraindication. Also, for people that are type 1 diabetics or insulin-dependent diabetics, the risks of going hypoglycemic and losing consciousness because of low blood sugar are high unless you really, really understand how to, monitor your blood sugars and how to adjust your insulin requirement. For people with advanced cancers that are losing too much weight, this can be risky to engage on your own. Women that are pregnant or breastfeeding, I recommend them not to go into these kind of programs, because these kind of programs include replacing solid meals with liquid meals, and it can be negative to a pregnant or breastfeeding woman. So those are the situations in which people should not engage in this kind of program. But who should is everybody else. Everybody else that lives in the modern world and is exposed to the myriad of chemicals that our industrialized civilization has overloaded us with. They would benefit from either a detoxification program or a gut repair program. And how often? Well, it depends. How often do you shower? You shower as often as you need, depending on what you're exposed to. If you take a shower and then jump in the mud, you need a shower 5 minutes later. If you take a shower and you don't do much for a few days, then maybe you don't need a shower. So it's the same thing with cleansing and detox. For the general public, I say once a year it's great to do a 21-day program. Some people need it more often, some people need it less often. It's a learning curve. People have to engage in these things, learn, and mostly come to understand how things affect them personally, because not everybody is the same.
Yeah, so it's a very individual process, and it would be best if you had a functional medicine doctor like Dr. Junger or me. I was Dr. Carri, Dr. Me. And if you don't have a functional medicine doctor, you could go to the website for the Institute for Functional Medicine and find a doctor near you. Now, Dr. Junger, we're running low on time. You have a fantastic website. Can you tell our listeners your web page? And you have a whole online program. And then where can they find your books? And how can they find out more about you?
Yeah, what you say about needing a functional medicine doctor, I agree to a certain extent with that, because I want more than anything people to take charge of their own health and learn about their health, and basically in the end don't need any doctor, functional or non-functional. So if somebody doesn't have health issues that are delicate to deal with, I encourage people to do things on their own and try things on their own. And my website is www.cleanprogram.com, and that's where we sell our detoxification kit, for 21 days. That includes every supplement you need and the shake for meal replacements, but also we have an online community there, which is like the Facebook of cleansing and detoxification, with over 70,000 people from all over the world doing the program together, inspiring each other, answering their own questions. And I have a team, a support team that accesses these questions every day, and we answer, we give recipes, we post videos. It's really interesting.
So for our listeners out there, I'll make sure to post the links for Dr. Junger's website and his books on our notes. Dr. Junger, thank you so much for being my special guest today. This has been an awesome interview.
Thank you for having me, and have a beautiful day.
All right, that wraps up this very special episode of the Functional Medicine Radio Show with Dr. Alejandro Junger. And I want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. And I'd like to invite you back next week for another episode of the Functional Medicine Radio Show. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Carri Drzyzga, the Functional Medicine Doc. Have a great week, everyone.
You've been listening to the Functional Medicine Radio Show with your host, Dr. Carri Drzyzga, known internationally as the Functional Medicine Doc. Dr. Carri is committed to helping patients find the root cause of their health problems and fixing the cause with natural treatments so they can feel normal again. Dr. Carri is the founder of Functional Medicine Ontario and is the author of the hit book, Reclaim Your Energy and Feel Normal Again. Please tell your friends about the Functional Medicine Radio Show, and we'll see you next week with more from Dr. Carri.